yeah, they might be hitting you, but you're not going to get off target. You know, I'm actually pretty okay with this. We haven't gotten you to contribute your own posts and everything. We'll do this post show, but we are going to, with the outline for the show, we're going to definitely want to have all of your links for the forum threads and Reddit threads and everything else that's current for you guys, so that anybody else can look up this information and get more detailed analyses. But we've gotten some questions from the chat room that I did want to go over. Getting Lucky wanted to simply say thanks to you guys for all the work that you do for the theory crafting. Sonata, I want to know what the sweet spot is for alacrity on a Sork healer. Is there a sweet spot, or is it, as you said before, a feeling of flavor?
I think it's a feeling of flavor. I mean, I don't think it would be correct to run any healer in 3.0 with 0 alacrity. But and I also don't think it would be correct to run any of them with like 1k alacrity. But the sweet spot is what feels good for you. So when you make that innervate cast, or channel rather, when you do your Dark Infusion cast, when you just hit a GCD and move on to the next thing, do you feel like it's not quite responsive enough? Do you feel like, you know, in a raid situation, do you feel like you just needed to get to that next thing just a little bit faster? Or do you feel like things are coming off cooldown a little too fast and maybe not hitting hard enough? Just adjust based on that. And I think you're going to come to something that you're going to come to a statting that feels right for you.
Yeah, just to reiterate what we've talked about, you have to make that decision. You have to make 10 different decisions, because that's how many slots that you have access to that will give you alacrity or surge if you're a healer. So 0 is, 0 out of 10 is the wrong answer either way. But whether it's, 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're not going to see that much difference with each incremental piece. So start out with 3 pieces for alacrity, see how you feel, and then adjust to, as Keyboard Ninja says, kind of like what your perception is of it at that point. And then course correct. Or start out at, I guess technically you would want to start out at more than 3, probably at 4 or 5, just given the fact of where surge is. So start out 50-50 and adjust up or down a little bit from there.
Yep.
In other words, and I guess the other thing I think that's always interesting when we talked about the challenge of tank theory crafting being that there's so many more factors, one of the challenges with healing theory crafting is, again, there's a less defined goal. Are you trying to come up with the maximum amount of burst healing that you can do? Are you trying to come up with the maximum amount of healing that you can do over 5 minutes? You may adjust your stats based on which particular question you're trying to answer. So there's not a clean case to say you want this because it'll solve, universally solve all your problems. Yeah, there may still be times when you want to fluctuate a little bit, but in any event, if you just, pick up something that you're comfortable with, you'll make it work and it'll be fine.
Okay. Lil CJ King 300 wants me to ask them personally, what do you think is best healer what's the best healer?
Merc.
Yeah, I like the Merc. I'm also biased. It's the only healer that I like playing.
Yeah.
But
right
it is
now,
also great.
Yeah. Right now, Mercs are really fabulous, and they have really, really, really good burst, very strong AoE tools. They have some fantastic utilities that work just really, really good for the content.
And incredible mobility.
I think they need to be nerfed somewhat, and I think the other healers need a little bit of love. But you can make almost any healing composition work. But if you really want to FOTM yourself, yeah, Merc is the best.
Zeshlock wants to know when you would reach that point where you would consider diminishing returns of primary stat is actually capped. So we're not there yet, and we've already discussed that its significant value has been reached at this stage. But where would it actually hit a stat value that the diminishing returns are quote unquote capped? That point.
So first need to better define the question. The primary stat does two things. It boosts your damage bonus, and it increases your critical chance. The boost that it provides to damage bonus is linear, which means that there is no cap. And it also means that the benefit you get from 0 to 100 primary stat is the same benefit that you get from 5,000 to 5,100 primary stat. So the potential cap that we're talking about is critical chances, or primary stats contribution to critical chance. And as we talked about at the start of this discussion, because we're saying now that power augments are better to primary stat, we've effectively already crossed that line. I don't know exactly what that line is. Like, there's not a hard level where I'd say it's 3,400 or 3,500, because it's going to be a little bit class dependent or spec dependent, because everybody's going to be slightly different. But I think since 2.0 came out, everyone was, by everyone I mean the theory crafting community that I'm aware of at least, was aware that we would be approaching that number, kind of around 3,500 as maybe just a rule of thumb, as the point where you could start to make a case that primary stats contribution to critical chance was no longer beneficial, and that power would be superior. Now, I guess the other thing to keep in mind is that doesn't mean there's absolutely no scenario where if you're a merc, healer, or DPS that you should use a commando armoring just because you're not getting a benefit from the critical chance from that. Like, you should always stick to the reflex armorings. So there's very few times where you actually have a situation in the game where you would make this trade-offs, augments being the only one. So, we're saying at this point, cross that line already where power is superior to primary stat.
Okay, so you went on to the next question.
Oh, did I? I didn't even notice that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's good because I wanted that reiterated, and we did have, if you could reiterate about augments concerning power and main stat, you did say that there were a couple advanced class disciplines that were exceptions to power. No,
Yeah,
I'm thinking
yes.
alacrity. But, okay, go ahead.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, what was it? Keyboard Ninja, you said that it was Orderken's math for mercs, or was it sages?
Oderken did the math for all three of the healing classes, and he came back initially with the result that power was better. But I do not believe that his math was updated for the surge buffs that mercs got. So I would tentatively say that, and also I will reiterate that I don't necessarily agree with how Oderken's models weight things in their entirety, because he does weight reliability a lot. But I will tentatively say that the math says power for Sork and for Operative, probably main stat for Merc, but very tentative. I mean, I don't have the spreadsheets in my hand and verified. Let's say that.
And for DPS, generally it does seem to be that power is better than main stat. However, at this stage of gear, they're so close that if you've already been augmenting for it and spent tons of credits on it, don't stress yourself.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and I already covered that. Frozen Squall wants to say hi to Keyboard Ninja and Oofalong while he's here. I'm not sure that he's still around, but he wanted his chance to say hello. And beyond that, I think we've covered everything.
I think it's great that there's a collection of Zors and Death and Taxes people running amok in your Twitch channel chat right now.
Yeah, this is awesome right now, actually.
Anybody that's going to be listening to the recorded podcast, I'm going to do a highlight of this entire stream, so everything will be captured on twitch.tv/R3DN4 for the podcast. But for the podcast, this information has been phenomenal. Thank you so much, Keyboard Ninja and Oofalong, for sharing with us. And like I said, we are going to want as many links as you have to give us for